I would tell teachers who wanted to use this approach for the first time to just do it. I mean, find out what kind of things they want to talk about, what kind of topics that they wanted to discuss, what goes along with their curriculum, and then find as many nonfiction stories or informational stories as they can to go with it. And try to get a good balance between fiction and nonfiction. Now, some things they may find they'll do all nonfiction stories, and that's fine too, I think. But just to make sure they do some nonfiction and some informational text, because the children really seem to enjoy it, and it really helps, I think, develop their vocabulary and their knowledge base a little bit better.
Before we read, let's take a look at the pictures again, especially down there at the map.
They must be located in Italy.
Okay, so you're making, already there's an, I wonder if they're located in Italy. You don't need to necessarily write that one, but we're thinking that questions really happen all the time as you're learning right now. All right, so go ahead and read. Do not forget the little part down there at the bottom, the caption down there next to the map. In the beginning, when we first show a nonfiction text, unless they're a nonfiction reader, they're really scared of nonfiction. They would rather choose fiction because it's fun, it's easy, they're used to it. So once we introduced the concept of nonfictional text or informational text and showed them their features and broke it down, they've really started to enjoy it more. So their engagement is higher. We are seeing more kids choose those texts because they're not scared of it anymore. They enjoy it. They like learning. We started this year using the book Stella Luna to talk about summary as a skill. And from there, that was about bats. And we decided as a class we wanted to learn more about bats. So we talked about where would we go to learn more about bats, which would be informational text. So I pulled a nonfiction book about bats out, and we talked about how it looked different, how it sounded different than the first book, which was Stella Luna. So doing a paired reading on the same topic was an easy way to show the kids those different parts. They really pulled it out. They discussed, we do a lot of partner talk. They kind of developed understanding of it on their own, and then as a class we talked about it also.
Sometimes we'll do a whole group, read it together, and then break up into groups as to what objectives I want each group working on, or my high group, I want you inferencing or analyzing this part, and then kind of get it all together. So we do whole group as well as small group.
Good job.
Our lesson today was about questioning. And what do questions help us do?
And figure out
Understand what
stuff.
we're reading. Help us figure out what we're reading.
Understand the meaning of the word or the text.
Understand the meaning of the text and the information we're getting. Good.
To identify quality informational text, I try to look at the vocabulary words that are in there, how they're presented in the story, if they're highlighted, if they're bold, so that way the children have an easier way to look at them and figure out the words that they don't know. I like to look at the pictures. If it's good, detailed pictures, I like to use those books. If they're real pictures, or even, which most of them are, that's really the best. But mostly if it's a good laid out, has a good table of contents, and has some good bold vocabulary words with some good pictures, is most of the books I like to use.
We have a chart where the headings are, I completely understand this word. I've heard this word but don't know what it means. And I have no idea what this word means. And you'll start with a list of vocabulary words, and the kids will put them where they fit for themselves. And then as you go throughout the book or the week or whatever you're doing for that length of time with those vocabulary words, they develop those vocabulary and they go gradually to hopefully to the ones, I understand this word.
Some of the challenges I have found using the informational text is sometimes I have to look at the words in it, vocabulary, and do more research sometimes to figure out some of the words they're saying, maybe why they call it that, because the children will ask a lot of questions. Well, why do they call it that? Well, where do they get that from? Sometimes I will have to research and figure out exactly why they may put those words in there, what exactly the words mean, or why they chose that. And sometimes I'll research even to go further than what the text might go. Like they'll have more questions than what's in the text. So I may have to really research other books to use, more informational text. We've gotten on the internet and done different research projects off of an informational textbook. So, yeah, we've done that several times.
What is a question that you have right now about this text or this event? Go ahead and write it down. I'm wondering what? What are you wondering? Lay them out. What you're going to do is, as we're reading this text, I want you to think about, are you finding the answer to your question? Really, I haven't touched a textbook in many years, and this is the first year I brought textbooks back out. But the reason is we're doing Literacy First, like I mentioned, and in Literacy First, we have a whole group read aloud time period, and so you're trying to teach your reading skills, whether they're nonfiction or fiction, based on what your kids need. So you have to find an appropriate text to go along with that skill. We've searched every resource we have. So our resources here happen to be textbooks. So we're using them in that way, but we're using them more as a single reader, not a textbook that you're going from page to page or story to story in. So it's just using them as another book. Why do they mention 50 people injured and 11 people killed when 21 people were killed and 150 people were injured? So turn back to that newspaper.
Like the Titanic.
Just like the Titanic. I love the connection you make. I don't even have to make it. Explain.
Because a lot of people died and they didn't make it to the ship, but in the newspaper they said, I think it was less people died or more people died. I'm not sure.
Yeah, in the newspaper was less. Why? Do you remember?
Because the information doesn't travel that fast.
Meaning,
That they didn't get the exact number.
right, so let's look at the date on this newspaper. How many of you still have a question that's not answered? Okay, so what does that make you want to go and do? Go find. Go find out the answer. Go find another book. Go find it on the internet. Is that going to make you a better reader? Yeah. Does that make you gain more knowledge? Okay, so why do we use questioning?
To help you.
To find out information, to make us smarter, curious.
Of course, with the standard course of study changing, all these other regulations that teachers have, you can't just get your information out of a textbook. It's impossible if you want the children to be successful and you want them to learn something, because you really want them to have that aha moment and the engagement instead of just, okay, here's your textbook, read these pages, answer these worksheets. They're not going to get anything out of it. So leveled readers and nonfiction is definitely how I teach science and social studies.